Angelo, hi, I got some tea for you. I hope you don't mind, but this time I decided to buy the tea. Last time, let's just say that the tea I was given, all a bit dodgy. So very mainstream, very boring. I've coming to realize, I think I've carbon dated myself. I am as old as the dinosaurs, certainly in terms of technology terms. And I say that because as I look back on my own working life, I've gone everywhere from mainframes to PCs, client server to enterprise computing. I've seen the rise of cloud and mobile computing, all the while intersecting this nebulous thing called the internet and the web. And the impact of that has been profound. It's changed service delivery, it's changed business models, it's changed the actual products, and perhaps also the expectations with which society, whether it's millennials, whether it's Generation X, whether it's the baby boomers, how they procure and consume their financial services. And that got me thinking, with all these new ways of engaging, are financial services firms, and banks in particular, are they exposed to a whole new raft of cybersecurity?
I think it's very different on the surface, and the complexity of the foundation and the base continues to evolve. I think people today say fintech. Well, what's the difference between .com bubble, e-commerce, the web, the cloud, mobile, Internet of Things? All of these are acronyms and words to kind of describe how the world is evolving, but at the end of the day, in banking, it still comes down to money, and where is the money? I think with the omni-channel approach and the multi-generational evolution of serving customers how they want to be serviced, it creates a certain amount of complexity that the middle and back office tied to the front office, it certainly opens up the risk. But the key is the money is still in the bank. It's what are the different ways that people can access or corrupt that?
But surely with all these, let's keep it simple, with all these multiple devices,
right?
Whether it's smartphones, tablets, PCs, whether it's telephone banking, and dare I say even in branch,
right?
Is financial services exposed to a new set of threats?
I don't think they're necessarily new. I think they're just evolving, right? So new would mean that we haven't seen it before. So I think that banks have to evolve in how they try to manage and uncover that risk, because it's going to continue. The more of the complexity and the integration points of vendors and internal systems and omni-channel approach, banks certainly have to be on top of that and not wait for something bad to happen to figure out how to stop it.
So if technology has changed, and it has, it sounds to me that you're suggesting that the systems and the processes, those pretty much remain the same, or are you suggesting that those themselves have to change?
Well, I think that banks, based on regulatory requirements, are changing, but they're changing reactively to regulatory pressures. Whereas, again, if I come back to the basics of how I learned business at GE, people, process, and technology are always going to exist. The key to securing that and evolving is evolving the people, the processes, and the technology quickly and always with a sense of what's the risk to my customer and to my business by bad actors outside of that.
So when I was a kid growing up, and I have carbon dated myself, but when I was a kid growing up, one of my favorite playground games was this thing called Cops and Robbers. There would be the good guys, there'd be the cops, there'd be the bad guys, and it always ended up running around the playground with the cops chasing the robbers. Back in the day, it was a simple plot. The money was in the bank, the robbers would steal the money, and the cops would try and either stop it from happening or catch them afterwards. But if I look at where cybercrime is now, yes, it's perhaps about stealing the money, but it seems to be manifesting itself in lots of different ways.
Well, and let's not forget, I think I read an article the other day that bank robberies in New York City haven't gone down from 2015 and 2014. People still rob banks the traditional way, drilling holes into roofs, going in and passing a note with or without a gun. I think the complexity is it's not that people have shifted resources from one type of risk to this cyber risk. It's now they have to cover both in more intelligent ways. So I think what we have to understand is, as again, software and banking industry experts and practitioners, is that the bad guys are never going to tell us how they're breaking into the bank. Malware doesn't come with a sign saying, this is Angelo, haha.
Sure.
Can I have some money?
Yeah.
And I think we got to stick to the basic principles of, in order for somebody to get money out of my bank, there should be some level of authentication. I was talking to a friend yesterday. She said that she looked at her bank statement and there was something weird. There was a $30 charge the last 3 months that she just noticed yesterday. She called her bank. The bank said, we're not the department to discuss that. You have to call this number. She calls that other number and the people say, I can't tell you who that is. So you let somebody take money out of my bank multiple times and you can't tell me who that is? Now, procedurally, that sounds a little backwards. Pragmatically, from a customer perspective, how infuriating is that? Let alone if I didn't look at my statement, bank's not out the money, I'm out the money. So I think that people will try ransomware. So you've heard of banks getting their whole system, not banks, but more hospitals getting their whole system shut down.
Or any institution, yeah.
Any institution, and saying, call this number and pay me.
Right.
Well, how come that type of crime exists and why can't we stop it? Well, go back to Bitcoin. If your identity can be hidden, as it can in the Bitcoin world, crime can manifest itself as long as the real world, paying with a credit card to buy Bitcoin, and I'm not going to stop it. I want to get back into my laptop and my pictures and my accounts, whether I'm a hospital or just an individual, and they make the price point such that it's easier for me to pay than lose all of that, and time is of the essence. How is that still able to go on? And is anybody doing something to prevent that? Those are the types of questions I don't think have answers.
So in my sense, there's the traditional bank robbery where the robber puts on his mask, breaks into the vault, cracks the vault, puts the money in his swag bags and then makes a run for it. With a lot of cybercrime, that's actually difficult because often those banking systems really are locked down. But where a lot of penetration is taking place, pushing and prodding, seems to be at the edge where unknown parties are fishing for passwords or are trying to lift passwords and login details.
Right.
With things like smartphones, things like apps, are we not more exposed more than ever? Perhaps not a little less to the bank, but a little more the bank being exposed by their customers.
Yeah. I think that technologies like facial recognition coming from a laptop or a fingerprint on the phone helps go a long way towards that, because if my phone is stolen, if banks aren't doubling down on validating charges that look out of the ordinary, I think this was actually a gym that was in another state altogether. So the bank should have known that she doesn't live in that state, and why would she be paying 3 months in a row at a location different than her home address?
And probably different to her normal purchasing cycle.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it can't just go to dollar amount, right? Bank says, oh, it's $30, so I only screen at $100 and above.
Right.
Well, I would gladly take $1 from everybody that had a bank if I could. Not the way to look at it if you're putting yourself in your customer seat, or the, I guess, fidelity of the whole system end to end.
So I'd like you to suspend your disbelief just for a moment. You wake up and you are now the CTO, the CIO of a large bank. There are many issues that you're going to have to deal with. But what do you think are the top 3 to 5 priorities in terms of locking down security? Is this a technology issue? Is this a systems process issue? Where would your focus be?
I think it goes back to all three, because at any given time, one of those three cannot be the weakest link. So when you talk about people, you talk about vendors and consultants that come into your environment as players and actors, or things that you outsource to people outside of your company. How much do you actually check and validate that they're vetting their people and they're vetting their vendors? You could have a consultant come in that's actually a consultant to the consultant that you hired. Again, a risk, because it's a person that I don't know how well they've been vetted. Processes, again, going back to the omni-channel approach, banks try to standardize processes as much as possible to reduce cost, but when you talk about opening up and creating omni-channel approaches, are they really trying to fit a square peg into a round hole because this specific channel needs a different middle office or back office validation process? Again, food for thought, because it's people, process, and then technology. If a vendor, you're buying or you leveraging a vendor to provide you a piece of technology in your stack, how integrated is it and how vetted is it? Open source code is well known. How often have people vetted open source code for malware, and with what frequency? Is that more frequently hacked into or corrupted versus a system that you buy from another vendor?
We're halfway through 2016. Over the next 12 months, what do you see being the key issue on the security front facing banks?
I think that we know of certain new threats that are out there, like ransomware and, again, physically trying to get the code into places. I think that what worries me most are what are the next forms of system corruption or break that maybe hackers and bad players have been working on for 6 months, and nobody's sharing any of that intelligence. So the first time many banks will see it is when it's applied to one or many at the same time. And again, I think that the industry is very good about only sharing what they want to share, and that doesn't embarrass them. I think, how do we get to a better place of more rapidly sharing breaches without it being made public, so that like-minded peers of mine can get a heads up that this is coming and this is what happened to me? But again, that's counter to our culture.
Well, no one wants to stand, especially if you're a bank, no one wants to stand up and say, oops, someone got the keys to the kingdom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Angelo, thanks. We've covered so much ground. I hope you enjoyed your tea.
I have. Thank you, Andrew. It was a pleasure.
Good to talk to you. Thank you.
Take care.